Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. Today we're going to be talking about seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression or the winter blues, whatever you want to call it. And I want you to hesitate in pushing stop if you're like, oh, that's not me. I don't need to listen to that, because here's the deal. We're all impacted by the change of the season. The days get shorter, the nights get longer, the temps decrease. And there's so much of an impact on all of us that I would just encourage you to stick around and hear what I've got to say. So I'm recording this episode almost mid to late October here in Maryland. The temperatures have definitely changed. We're getting into the 40s at night. And it's that time of year where I dress really warm in the morning and I totally regret it by the afternoon. I actually said to my son this morning that he might want to grab a hoodie because he was in a t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. And he said, no, I plan on taking these pants off. I've got shorts on underneath and I don't want to have the hoodie and the sweats. And it just made me chuckle because certainly we're all in that weird place where it's super chilly in the morning. And I think it's supposed to get up to like 78 this afternoon. So it's a weird time of year, right? Because in Maryland, the weather doesn't quite know what it wants to do yet. But I think it's okay to say we're officially in fall, even though we're still getting into the upper 70s. I think we might have hit the upper 80s this weekend. And this interesting thing happens because we have the holidays, which for many of us, it's a fun, exciting time. There's lots going on, there's family gatherings, and it's just a fun, energetic time, although sometimes draining, so be sure to catch my episodes on preparing for the holiday madness. But the reality is there's a lot to look forward to, right? But there's also some of us who might not be that happy about the holidays. Some of us are grieving, some of us have personal reasons why the holidays are not fun, exciting times. You add that to this whole change of the weather and everything else, and it can really cause some issues. So by the time you're hearing this, we will have already fallen back, which is that end of daylight savings time. So Sunday, November 3rd this year is when we're going to fall back. We're going to gain that extra hour of sleep. But what that also means is that we're losing an hour of daylight. And I know my husband and my kids and I have talked about this before in terms of like why we have daylight savings and all of that. And I know that there is reasons for it historically. I'm not really quite sure that I understand it now. But that's a conversation for another day because I'm in no position to change the time zones, right? We know what this means, right? For some of us, we're going to leave in the morning before the sun comes up. We're going to get home in the evening after the sun has already gone down. We will be working, many of us, in a building, some with windows, some without, during the sunlight hours of the day. And that can lead to what some people consider the winter blues. For other people, it can be much more serious than that. So while those two things are similar, the winter blues and seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression, I do want to bring some things to your attention that you can keep in mind, not only for yourself, but for others around you, so that we can stay as healthy as possible during these next several months. The winter blues often don't cause significant impairment in our daily function. We're still getting up, we're still going to work, we're still engaging in the things. We just might feel a little blah. And it's also when the days are when the sun is a little brighter and the temps are a little bit warm, we're really excited because we can hopefully go out and enjoy those days. For people who experience seasonal affective disorder, this is a real type of depression, and it is related to the seasons changing. It typically falls during this time of fall and winter when we have less sunlight. And some of you might already know that you are predisposed to have, let's say, the winter blues. But I would encourage you to be aware if it turns into something more significant than that. Because fall and winter lasts for, 4 to 5 months. I figure here in Maryland, we've really hit fall somewhere around October. So we have October to November, December, January, February, March. It's still pretty chilly. So we've got a good solid 5 months. And we know that there's probably about 10 million Americans that categorize low mood, lack of energy, changes in appetite, difficulty concentrating, and really just wanting to stay in bed and sleep. That is characteristic of seasonal affective disorder. So I would encourage you to consider, are there symptoms for you that are really impacting your functioning at home, functioning at work, functioning with social interactions, impacting your health? Or can you, quote, snap out of it, right? Winter blues, I'm going to say, are those people that might have low energy and fatigue and maybe a little bit of mood, but not significant impacts on everyday functioning. Those people with seasonal affective disorder, though, they have that. I've mentioned that a couple times, so I won't really repeat it so many times, except to say that it's something that we need to intervene on for ourselves and for our loved ones, so that we're not spending 5 months out of the year in a state of depression. There's this idea that seasonal affective disorder is caused by the disruption in the body's circadian rhythm, because the sun is coming up at a different time and setting at a different time, and there's this change in our internal clock. Then we also have a decrease in serotonin levels, and that can be impacted because of the reduction in sunlight. I want you to think of those of you in higher latitudes geographically. You might be impacted by this even more. You're also more likely to have harsher winters. So that would all make sense to me. What I want to share with you are some tips and tricks to help with combating the winter blues, also seasonal affective disorder, just kind of general health and wellness over the course of the next several months. And hopefully you'll find some ideas that will help you going into these colder months so that you're not really dreading it as much as maybe you did last year. I'm going to come back in just a minute after a quick little break for you to hear about some of our upcoming services.
Are you a yogi in Southern Maryland looking for a place to practice on Thursday mornings? Look no further than Gentle Yoga with Lori Bruce at Hope and Healing in Leonardtown. A certified yoga therapist, Lori brings over 2 decades of yoga training and teaching to her classes. Gentle Yoga with Lori is suitable for all levels. Join us in person or tune in from home, as all Thursday morning classes will be available virtually. Space is limited, so reserve your spot today at loribruceyoga.com/schedule.
Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. We're talking today about the winter blues and seasonal affective disorder, seasonal depression, and it's really important to understand the difference between those. So if you're jumping into the middle of this, make sure you go back before the break and listen to what the differences are. But a couple of the things that can be really, really helpful with especially seasonal affective disorder is exposure to light. We already talked about that. Part of the thought process behind what seasonal affective disorder is and why it happens is because we have less exposure to sunlight, which decreases serotonin levels, and we need to look at how to increase light exposure. So that can be bright artificial lights, a light box, or a light lamp. You can get those on Amazon. Certainly you might want to chat with your doctor if you have any reason to believe that light therapy wouldn't be appropriate for you. I would also have you consider just getting out into the sunlight. It can be difficult for those of us who work indoors that we're not necessarily getting sunlight. But here's a few things to consider. If you're looking at this podcast via YouTube, you can see that I'm in a pretty bright room. I'm fortunate to have two windows, one on each of these walls over here, and the blinds are closed. And the room is really bright. So I certainly could open up the blinds and let some more sunlight in. That would be helpful to get more sunlight in. I could also choose to sit for a few minutes in front of that bright window. So I would encourage you to think, whether you're in an office building or in your home, where can you put yourself so that you're getting sunlight? When my youngest son was born, he had pretty severe jaundice, and the doctor let us bring him home right after he was born, and he said, I want you to chase the sun around your house. So I want you to put him in a bouncy chair or his little bassinet or something, and I want you to just follow the sun through the windows of your house. And so, the sun came up in the living room, and we just moved it around the house as the sun went through the course of the day. Unfortunately, he ended up having to go back into the hospital to get the bilirubin lights. But it just makes me think of how important that sunlight is for us. So why not move a chair into a window that gets some really good sunlight while you're reading a book or watching TV or having a conversation with a friend or a family member, or even sitting at your desk and working. I would prefer natural sunlight to artificial light, but any kind of light that's going to help to compensate for us not being outside as often as we are during the spring and summer months. Certainly you want to consider what I describe as habit stacking. You've heard me say it before. Feeding, fueling, moving, resting your body. I encourage you to exercise. I encourage you to move your body. Independent of the winter months, just in general, we know that when we exercise, there are so many physical and mental benefits. And if you can do that movement outside or with exposure to the sun, that's even better. So instead of walking on a treadmill, can you walk outside? Instead of riding a stationary bike, can you go biking outside? Can you go for a walk with a friend? You're having a conversation on the phone. I know some of us still do that. We're not just texting all the time. Can we do that outside? I have certainly been known to take a phone call and walk up and down my driveway, and my husband, will yell out, "What are you doing?" And I'll tell him I'm on the phone, or sometimes I listen to a podcast or an audiobook. And I just walk up and down the driveway. I'm getting movement and some steps in. I'm also getting sunshine, and I'm getting fresh air, because those things are so vitally important to our mental health. So the big takeaway from this component is getting natural and or artificial sunlight to help alleviate some of those symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. And if you don't have seasonal affective disorder, you just have the winter blues, all that extra sunlight is just going to make things better for you. You want to make sure that you are maintaining a healthy diet. There's tons of podcast resources that we have where I've talked to our nutritionist, Tracy Pritchard, and she shares some really great ideas for staying healthy from a nutrition standpoint. But you certainly want to make sure that you are eating a healthy, whole foods diet. I say diet in terms of like what you're eating, not that I want you to be restrictive in any way, but that you're eating healthy foods that are going to fuel your body. And again, feed, fuel, move, rest your body. You also want to make sure that you're getting plenty of sleep and not too much sleep. It's tempting to stay curled up in bed when it's chilly outside. Maybe you haven't turned on your heat yet and it's still really chilly in the morning, and so we're tempted to stay in bed. I would encourage you to consider, maybe adjusting the thermostat in your house if you have the ability to do a schedule, so that maybe the temperature kicks up a few degrees just before you're supposed to get up, so that it's not so cold, and then you're feeling a little bit more motivated to get up. I would also encourage you to think of ways to force yourself out of bed, such as putting your alarm on the other side of the room so that you're less likely just to reach over and hit snooze and curl back into a warm bed. Maybe you have some kind of accountability where you're going to meet up with a friend to work out, or you have some kind of accountability partner to help get you up in the morning and maybe also get you moving. Having a support network is really, really important, whether it's family or friends or neighbors, church members, members of other organizations that you're a part of, people that you can lean on for emotional support, and also people that are going to encourage rather than enable. So if you can make sure that you are connecting with people that are maybe not impacted as much by the seasons, that would be really helpful for you. And to consider saying to those people, hey, friend, I really struggled during the fall and winter months, so I would like you to help hold me accountable for getting out of the house, for getting some sun exposure, to moving my body, and to not just being a hermit all winter long. And hopefully that friend will take that invitation and they'll give you a call and say, hey, do you want to go to the pumpkin patch with us? Or, hey, do you want to walk around a local light show? Or do you want to go to this outdoor market? Do you want to come sit over and have some hot chocolate on my back porch? Someone that's going to be willing to help encourage you during those winter months. And certainly if those social supports are not enough, I would encourage you to consider talk therapy, seeing a professional in order to help even further encourage and motivate, learn new skills, and look at what tools are available. I want you to think about talk therapy. I want you to think about going to counseling as a tool for managing the winter, removing any stigma that you might have or negative thoughts that you might have about being broken or needing to be fixed. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll probably say it 1,000,000 more, that we are not broken and we do not need to be fixed, but sometimes we need extra tools to help us get through the things that life throws our way. And winters can be hard. Depending on where you live, it may have already started snowing and you may not have an end in sight for non-white frozen ground until late spring. Here in Maryland, the weather is so fickle that who knows, it could snow tomorrow and then not snow again until January, or it could not snow at all. We just don't know what's going to happen here in Maryland. But I do know that being aware of the changes in the winter weather and preparing myself for what that's going to look like, getting outside and getting some fresh air and some sunshine. Here's a really easy idea. Instead of just letting the dog out, maybe you go out with the dog. I've said this before. 2 birds, 1 stone, cup of coffee, front porch, fresh air, sunshine, getting your cup of joe, and letting the dog out, right? That's taking care of several things all at one time. Because what we don't want is, you might have seen it recently, there's an Instagram reel of I think it's a polar bear. And it's in a den, and man, it looks like it got put away wet and stuck a finger in a light socket, and the hair is just going, every which direction, and it's not quite white, it's more brown, and it's coming out of hibernation, clearly. But, the joke is, me after not having coffee or some other thing. And that's what we want, is that we don't end up hibernating for the winter and then it takes us all spring and summer to kind of get back into the groove of life just for fall and winter to come around again. Because we know that the seasons they're going to come and they're going to go, and we're going to keep going just like the wheels of a bicycle. So we really want to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to best care for ourselves, and then reach out to professionals who are going to help put together treatment plans that are going to be most effective for you, so that you have the tools and the skills and the tricks and the tips that you need to be the healthiest version of yourself, whether it's the spring, the summer, the fall, or the winter. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I certainly hope that you can enjoy the next several months, not only as we reach into the holiday season and all of the fun, exciting activities that are to come, but also as we look at the end of one year and the beginning of another, and the fun of the seasons changing. I would love to hear from you what your ideas are and how you best manage the winter blues. You can always email me, jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. You can send us messages on our Instagram and Facebook profiles. And be sure to reach out if you do need professional support. We're always happy. If we cannot serve you here at Hope and Healing, we're always happy to help direct you in the right place. So I hope you have a wonderful fall and winter. Stick around for more episodes to come, and I hope you have a great day.